The Rivera Tower stood tall in the heart of the city, its glass walls glittering like a promise no storm could wash away. Inside, behind the thick oak doors of the top floor, a father and son sat face to face for the first time in months. Nathan adjusted the cuffs of his plain white shirt. No designer suit, no gold watch, nothing that whispered heir to the empire. Just a young man with steady eyes and a voice that hadn't lost its calm, even when his father, the mighty Thomas Rivera, leaned in with that half-smile of both pride and warning. "Tell me again why you want this, Nathan. You could have my seat tomorrow if you asked. You'd have the corner office, the power, the respect, all without lifting a finger." Nathan's gaze didn't waver. He could see the city skyline reflected in his father's glasses, the very city his family's money had built, brick by brick. But he wasn't here for marble floors and bowing secretaries. "I don't want people to bow to my name. I want to see who kneels to someone they think is nothing. I want to find out who's real, who's poison, and who's worth fighting for." Thomas leaned back, letting out a low chuckle that carried the weight of years building an empire. "You sound just like your mother when she said yes to marrying a man with nothing but an empty plot of land and a blueprint in his pocket." There was warmth in his eyes, the warmth that only surfaces when pride and fear stand shoulder to shoulder. "They will hate you, son. Some will worship you once they know who you are, but until then, they will crush you, test you, drag you down. Can you stand it? You?" Nathan's lips curved into a smile. Not the arrogant grin of a spoiled heir, but the quiet promise of someone who'd already chosen the harder road. "Let them. Let me see the worst. And when I find the one person who sees me for who I am, not for Rivera, I'll know they're worth keeping." Somewhere in that towering building, a girl named Claire was setting down her resume in shaking hands, stepping into a world she thought might be her way out of the shadows. She didn't know that the boy who'd trade his crown for a simple hello was about to step into the same world of fluorescent lights, whispered gossip, and small betrayals. Nathan stood, reached for the plain badge on his father's desk. "Ethan Cole, intern." He tucked it into his pocket like a secret weapon. Behind him, Thomas watched his only son walk away, the old man's eyes narrowed not in doubt, but in a hope he'd buried for too long. "May the filth wash off, not stick to you, and may you find the soul worth all this trouble." Outside that glass tower, the city never knew a storm was coming. The kind of storm that would break masks, test loyalties, and plant the seeds of a love no fortune could ever buy. The break room smelled of cheap instant noodles and even cheaper secrets. Claire stood by the microwave, hands clasped tight around her small lunchbox, the same one she'd carried every day for months. Behind her, the whispers always found new ways to cut. "Look at her. Pretty face, empty pockets. Think she's staying late because she works so hard, or because she's hoping some manager notices her." The tallest of the girls, Vanessa, hair perfectly curled, nails like painted claws, leaned closer, just enough for Claire to hear every syllable. "We all know how girls like you get ahead here, sweetheart." Claire flinched but didn't turn. She focused on the soft hum of the microwave, as if it could drown out the sting of words that tasted like poison she'd learned to swallow without tears. Far across the hallway, behind tinted glass walls, Ethan, or Nathan, if truth mattered, sat in a cramped corner desk that smelled of dust and old coffee. First day as an intern. No nameplate, no handshake, just a stack of files dumped onto his lap by a senior associate who didn't bother to hide the smirk. "You're the new guy, Ethan, right? Sort this mess by tonight, or don't bother showing up tomorrow." He heard laughter as they walked away. He caught snatches of their gossip, like knives thrown behind careless smiles. "Fresh meat. Maybe we'll teach him how things work around here, sink or swim." Back in the break room, Claire's hands trembled as she set down her food. She'd once thought beauty would open doors. She'd learned instead it painted targets on her back. Still, she forced her shoulders to square, forced her mouth to curl into that small, quiet smile. "Thank you for your concern," she said softly, eyes lowered. "I hope you all have a good lunch." They laughed behind her. One flicked her hair into Claire's face as she passed. And somewhere across the office maze, Ethan looked up from his piles of invoices and thought, "So this is what my father's empire looks like up close. How many masks did I never see?" Action sparks. A sudden shout breaks through the open floor. A junior worker drops a box, files scatter. A manager snaps, blaming the new intern, Ethan. Before he can explain, he sees Claire kneel beside him, gathering scattered papers that aren't even hers. Their eyes meet for a split second. Her gaze says, "Don't speak. Some storms aren't worth standing in alone." He wants to thank her, but before he can open his mouth, the same manager barks at Claire too. "And you, stop playing the saviour. Focus on your own pathetic numbers if you want to stay here." She bows her head. Ethan clenches his fist so tight he feels his nails bite skin. But he says nothing. Not yet. The office lights flickered overhead. The hour hand crawled past 10, but the room was still alive with the soft scratch of pens and the fake laughter of people waiting to pounce. Ethan hunched over the mountain of files he'd been handed that morning, hands cramping, eyes burning. He'd found a hidden error in the invoices, a subtle leak that cost the department thousands each month. He stayed late to fix it, tracing each wrong number like a detective pulling a thread from a tangled knot. But as he gathered his findings, the echo of footsteps made him pause. The senior who dumped the work on him earlier sauntered in, his smile sweet as spoiled milk. "Still here, rookie, what's that?" Ethan, in his plain white shirt that looked cheaper than the suits around him, explained the leak, how to fix it, how to prevent it. The senior clapped him on the shoulder. "Good catch, kid. Send me the file. I'll make sure the boss knows you did well." For a moment, a flicker of warmth rose in Ethan's chest. Maybe not everyone here was poison, but the next morning was a knife straight through that hope. Standing in the morning briefing, Ethan watched that same senior beam proudly as he presented Ethan's work, line by line, word for word, as his own. The room clapped, the manager nodded, praises flew like confetti. None of it touched Ethan. Nobody looked at the young man in the back, gripping his plastic coffee cup so hard it cracked. "Good job, Oliver, didn't think you had it in you." Oliver winked at Ethan, his voice smooth. "Teamwork, you know. Some interns are useful for once." The laughter that followed left a taste like rust in Ethan's mouth. Cut to Claire. In another corner of the building, Claire sat alone in the break room, the clock mocking her with each tick. She was the only one left. The same girls who whispered poison now gone home to soft beds, leaving her to finish their undone work. She typed until her fingers ached, her phone lighting up with another missed call from the hospital. Her mother's treatment overdue, her paycheck eaten away by late fees and bus fare. Her eyes stung, but she blinked back the tears. She thought of her father, once strong, who used to say, "Keep your head down. Good people always find good endings." She wondered now if that was true, if good was just another word for easy to break. Back to Ethan. Ethan stormed out of the briefing room, the company badge burning in his pocket like an insult. He wanted to march back in to shout the truth. But then what? He'd promised himself he'd see this through. Start from dirt to know who was poison and who was gold. He caught sight of Claire through the glass. Her small figure slumped under flickering fluorescent light, surrounded by files that weren't hers. A tiny voice inside him whispered, "She's fighting the same fight, but how long can someone like her last?" He watched her wipe her eyes when she thought no one was looking. And in that moment, the anger inside him sharpened, not into rage, but into resolve. Morning came with rain, not the romantic drizzle in movies, but a hard, cold downpour that turned the city into a blur behind the office windows. Claire sat at her tiny desk, hair still damp because the old bus she took had leaked all over her seat. Her eyes were swollen from sleeping barely an hour, but she still typed, still smiled at the manager passing by, as if the night before hadn't broken something inside her. In the hallway, Ethan paused, watching her from afar. He could still taste the bitterness from having his work stolen, but it was her, that tiny, hunched figure fighting invisible battles that dug under his skin. He walked to the vending machine, bought 2 hot coffees with the last coins in his pocket. He didn't think, he just did it. Scene shift, the moment that should have been kindness. He placed the cup gently on her desk. Claire jumped, startled. She looked up into his tired eyes. He offered a small, crooked smile. "Long night?" She hesitated. No one ever asked her that. She nodded, cheeks flushing. She reached for the cup. It was still warm. A small kindness in a place that seemed to starve people of it. "Thank you, Ethan, right?" He almost told her his real name, almost, but swallowed it back. "Hang in there. Good people always find a way through." For a second she believed him. But kindness here was a flame in a room full of oil. The moment he stepped away, Vanessa and her pack circled Claire like vultures. "Look at you. Working overtime pays off, huh? What did you promise him for that coffee? Is that your new strategy, sweet face?" Claire's fingers clenched around the cup. The warmth now burned her palms like shame. "It's not like that," she tried to whisper. But whispers don't stop poison. At the far end of the corridor, Ethan turned back. He caught the sneer on Vanessa's lips, the way Claire's shoulders curled in like a wilted flower. A fury rose in him, sharper than before. He wanted to shout, to drag Vanessa out by her hair, to tell everyone who he really was. But he remembered. Patience. Mask on. Truth has to wait. Scene cuts sharp. Claire runs into the ladies' room, locks herself inside. The cup of coffee sits in the trash bin, still half full. Outside, Ethan leans against the cold wall, fists in his pockets, eyes dark. Even a hand reached out to help can be twisted into a knife, so this is the game. Fine, let's play. Meanwhile, in the top-floor office, Thomas Rivera stands at the window watching two small figures down below. His voice is low, meant only for himself. "Sometimes you need to burn to see who stands with you after the smoke clears." That afternoon, the office air was thick. You could almost taste the gossip clinging to every cubicle like mould. Claire sat at her desk, eyes red but head held a little higher than usual. Ethan's coffee, though thrown away, had done something to her resolve. Across the floor, Vanessa perched on the edge of a co-worker's desk, spinning her version of the story for anyone who'd listen. "You know how girls like that are. One coffee, next thing you know she's in his bed. She's playing the sympathy card." She laughed, and the others laughed too. But their eyes darted uneasily when they saw Ethan walking toward them, calm as a tide rolling in. Ethan didn't shout, he didn't throw a punch, he just stood there, watching Vanessa like she was a stain on a spotless floor. Then, with a smooth flick of his wrist, he dropped a file on her desk. Thick, stapled, marked urgent. "Vanessa," he said, his voice so polite it dripped like honey laced with glass. "I fixed the numbers in the Williams account you messed up last month, again." Her smile froze, the laughter around her choked off. "Don't worry," Ethan went on, his eyes locked on hers. "The manager thinks I did the entire thing, but I told him you deserved credit too. You did start it after all." She opened the file, saw her sloppy mistakes highlighted line by line. A single slip would have cost the company thousands, and her job. Ethan leaned in, voice low enough for her ears only. "Next time you want to gossip about someone's bed, make sure your own sheets are clean." He walked away, calm, the perfect polite intern, but his pulse pounded like war drums in his ears. Cut. Claire, same time. She'd heard the rumours all day, seen the smirks, felt the eyes burning holes into her back, but when she saw Ethan stand up to Vanessa, not with fists, but with the one thing no one here could twist, the truth, a tiny flicker lit in her chest. So that night, when a co-worker tried to dump another load of work on her desk as she grabbed her bag, Claire did the one thing no one expected. No. The word was small, but it hit the room like glass shattering on marble. The co-worker, a man twice her size, eyes tired and mean, stepped closer. "What did you say, sweetheart?" Claire's fingers shook, but she didn't look away. "No more covering for you. Do your own work, or stay late like I did." It should have been her victory, but poison always finds a crack. The man slammed his fist down, files flew, his voice thundered so the whole floor heard. "So now you think you're better than us? Who do you think you are, you charity case?" People peeked out from cubicles. Not one stepped forward. Claire's shoulders sagged as the man hissed in her ear. "Next time you want to say no, remember you're nothing here. You're just a pretty mouth they'll spit out when they're done." Meanwhile, Ethan, watching, he'd come back for his jacket, saw it all. His knuckles whitened, nails biting skin. He wanted to roar his real name, his real bloodline, to tear the whole charade apart. But he forced himself to stay behind the glass door, hidden. Patience. Let the rot show itself. But dear God, how much more will she have to break before we both stand up? The days bled into each other. The bright lights of Crown Holdings never seemed to sleep, but the people inside did, slowly, painfully. Ethan sat at his cubicle, eyes burning as the overhead bulbs hummed like a wasp nest. His plan had been so clear at first: hide his name, see the truth, stay patient. But patience, he was learning, has teeth, and the teeth were digging into his throat. Across the aisle, Claire's desk looked like a battlefield. stacks of papers leaning like towers about to collapse. She hadn't gone home for 2 nights. No one asked why. They just left more work, more files, more poison behind polite smiles. Vanessa, with her perfect hair and cold grin, stopped by on her way out, the smell of expensive perfume like a slap in Claire's face. "Hey, sweetheart, don't forget to file those reports before morning. Wouldn't want the manager to think you're useless and lazy, right?" Claire didn't look up, didn't flinch. Her fingers just kept moving, typing, sorting, signing. But Ethan, 2 desks away, saw the tremor in her shoulders. Hours later, the storm breaks in a whisper. At 2 a.m, Ethan woke with a start. He'd dozed off, forehead on his desk. He looked over there and saw her, Claire, head down on her keyboard, body curled in on itself like a wounded bird. A tiny piece of paper poked out from under her limp hand. Ethan reached, careful not to wake her. On it, in tiny cramped letters, were just 4 words. "Am I good enough?" It wasn't for anyone else, maybe not even for herself. But it felt like a confession torn from a heart that had no one left to hear it. He felt something inside him snap, not loud, but final. All the nights of biting his tongue. The silent promise to watch, to wait, to learn who was poison. They felt suddenly so small in the face of this one truth. She wasn't just a kind girl in a cruel place. She was proof that even the strongest kindness bleeds if you cut it enough times. Meanwhile, above them, Thomas Rivera sat in his penthouse office, staring at the CCTV feed that only he could see. One camera showed his son slumped beside a girl everyone else stepped on. His fists clenched on the mahogany desk, knuckles pale. "I built this to give you power, not to watch it eat you alive." His voice was a growl to the empty room. "When will you stand up, Nathan? And when you do, will you still be my son, or something more terrifying?" Back down. Ethan gently draped his jacket over Claire's shoulders. He didn't touch her hair, didn't whisper promises. He just sat beside her, an unspoken vow forming between the cracks of their exhaustion. The rain pounded the glass windows that night, as if the city itself wanted to wash Crown Holdings clean. Inside, the air was thicker than the storm, an unspoken dread, a taste of betrayal waiting to be bitten. Claire, still half shaking under Ethan's jacket, came in early the next morning, hoping the worst was over. But monsters don't sleep, they just wait for you to feel safe. Vanessa was waiting by Claire's desk, a stack of files in her arms, eyes glittering with malice. "Look who showed up. Must be nice having the golden boy's jacket to keep you warm, Claire stiffened. Vanessa slammed the files down, pages scattered like falling knives. "Fix this by lunch, you screw it up, it's your signature on the blame, you know the drill." Claire's eyes darted to the top file. She froze. It was the international partner contract, a mess no junior should touch. One wrong number, one missing stamp, and it would cost the company millions, and Claire her job. "I'm not authorised, "Oh, but you are now," Vanessa hissed. "Unless you want HR to hear about how you get coffee from interns for favours." The words made Claire's chest burn. Shame, fear, rage, all tangled. She reached for the files anyway, because what choice did she have? But a choice was waiting. Ethan saw it all. Every word, every sneer. This time, he didn't wait. He strode over, calm as glass, and picked up the top file from Claire's shaking hands. "Problem, Vanessa?" Her fake smile snapped like cheap plastic. "Excuse me, this is none of your—" "Actually, it is," Ethan said, voice steady, eyes cold. "These contracts aren't for her level. You dump this on her, it's your ass that'll burn when the numbers go wrong." Vanessa scoffed. "What are you going to do, Ethan? Tell Daddy?" The word Daddy made something behind his eyes flicker, a crack in his mask. But he didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned in, voice so soft Vanessa had to lean closer to hear. "You think you own this floor, but I promise you, you're just another file waiting to be signed off and thrown away." The colour drained from her face. She tried to grab the papers. Ethan yanked them back. "From now on, if Claire works overtime, it'll be for her own progress, not to cover your incompetence. Got it?" Vanessa sputtered, but she couldn't scream, not with half the office watching now, seeing her claws exposed. But poison doesn't die easily. That afternoon, Vanessa and her pack whispered a new rumour, that Claire was sleeping her way up through the mysterious intern who acts like he owns the place. When Claire heard, her hands shook so hard she dropped her water bottle on the office stairs. water splashing over Ethan's shoes. She looked up, ready to apologize, but the words fell apart when she saw his face. Not angry, but tired. Tired in a way that said, "I know how it feels to be lied about." Back in the top office, Thomas Rivera watched the reports stack up, saw the weak ones crawl to him for protection, but he didn't move. He just looked out at the rain-soaked city and murmured, "Good, Nathan, let them fear you, even if they don't know why yet." Closing beat. That night, Ethan and Claire found themselves side by side in the break room, a silence between them heavy but oddly warm. He poured her a coffee. This time she didn't throw it away. "Why do you help me?" she asked, voice small. He held her gaze. His real name, his real bloodline, all the truth sitting on his tongue like a blade he refused to draw yet. Because sometimes, the people who bleed for nothing deserve someone to bleed with them. The office felt like a cage that day. The lights too bright, the walls too close. Claire sat stiff in the HR manager's glass box of an office, hands in her lap, eyes locked on the floor. Vanessa perched beside the HR rep, crocodile smile painted perfect. "You understand, Claire," the HR man droned, his tone syrupy poison. "Repeated mistakes, rumours of inappropriate behaviour. These things add up." Claire wanted to shout, "What mistakes? What rumours?" But her throat felt sewn shut. "We can keep you on the team," Vanessa purred, tapping her fake nails on the table. "But you need to prove you're loyal, maybe take on extra tasks for certain higher-ups, show you're grateful." The implication wasn't even hidden. It slithered across the glass walls like a snake. Claire's stomach twisted. She felt it. The hum of a line she'd never thought she'd stand on the edge of. Meanwhile, outside, Ethan was reviewing expense reports, pretending to be just another intern, when his phone buzzed, a whispered tip-off from the one cleaning lady who'd seen too much. "They're cornering her. Upstairs, they want her to beg." Ethan's hands froze. The air felt thick with smoke only he could smell. Smoke from the bridge of his patience burning down to ash. He dropped the files, boots echoing as he strode up the hallway, the same hallway where these walls had seen people smile while sharpening knives behind backs. Inside the office, Claire's voice finally cracked. "I've done everything you asked. I work overtime. I cover everyone's mistakes. What more do you want from me?" Vanessa leaned in, whispering so sweet it stung. "A little respect, darling, a little obedience, or you walk out that door with nothing." Claire's knuckles went white. Her last paycheck meant her mother's next treatment. Her breath came in shaky gasps. Then, the door flew open. Ethan stepped in, eyes dark as a storm about to break. "Am I interrupting?" The HR rep blanched. Vanessa smirked. "You have no place here, intern." Ethan walked to Claire, dropped a folder thick with printed emails. Vanessa's forged expense reports, siphoning funds, manipulating tasks, evidence he'd quietly collected for weeks. "Actually, I do." His voice was low, each word like the click of a gun being cocked. Funny how the people who want loyalty are the dirtiest players in the game. Vanessa lunged for the papers. Ethan pulled them back, just out of reach. "Touch her again, push her again, and the only door you'll walk through will have security guards on both sides." The HR man stuttered, sweating. He tried to stand, but Ethan's gaze pinned him like a blade. "And you? Next time you think blackmailing a junior staffer is good policy, try finding another job, in another city." Claire sat frozen. It should have felt like a win, but her chest ached because the humiliation still burned in her veins. She whispered, "Just for Ethan. They would have made me crawl, they would have taken everything." He crouched in front of her, ignoring the snakes squirming around the room. For the first time, his mask slipped. She saw the storm behind the quiet eyes. They can't take what they can't hold, and they can't hold you anymore. Meanwhile, up in the glass tower, Thomas Rivera leaned forward, eyes gleaming with a mix of fury and savage pride. "Let them taste who my son really is, piece by piece, until they choke on their own lies." The air in Crown Holdings turned heavy, like a thundercloud hovering above everyone's heads. People pretended to tap keyboards, but their eyes flicked up every few seconds, hungry for the next rumour to bite into. And the new rumour was poison on a silver spoon. "Ethan the intern, he's stealing company data, leaking it to the competitors. Probably why he acts so high and mighty." No one knew who started it. But in this place, lies always found ears faster than truth. Ethan felt the change like needles in his back. Where people used to whisper about his calm, now they flinched when he walked by. Vanessa's cronies, though missing their queen, still hissed from shadows, pouring oil on the fire. In the break room, Ethan found his locker broken open, his bag ripped apart, files scattered like dead birds. Pinned to the metal door was a note. "This place eats liars, go home, rich boy." Claire walked in on him picking up the mess, saw the dark bruises on his knuckles, the tight line of his jaw. She hadn't seen him this close since he'd saved her in the HR pit. And maybe she should have stayed away. Protect herself, like always. But kindness is a rope people cling to when they're drowning. "It's not true, is it?" she asked, her voice so small yet so loud in that echoing room. Ethan didn't answer at first. He didn't trust his voice not to crack open all the rage he'd held in. "Claire, it doesn't matter what they say. It matters what you see." She knelt down, helping him gather the shredded papers, some of them still with traces of the blood he'd shed when he punched the locker door in rage. Just then, the floor manager stormed in, face red, eyes sharp with fake righteousness. "Ethan Cole, conference room, now. The board wants to hear why our files are showing up in a rival firm's database. And guess whose login they traced it to?" A hush fell. Eyes peered from cubicles. The same eyes that had gossiped about Claire yesterday, now feasting on Ethan's humiliation. Claire stood up, her knees nearly buckling, but she forced herself forward, shielding Ethan from the manager's barking. "He didn't do it, he wouldn't. I've seen him work late. He's the only one fixing your mistakes, while the rest of you..." The manager cut her off with a sneer. "Oh, look at that. The charity case defends her knight in shining armour. How sweet. Maybe you're both in on it." Claire's hands shook, but her voice didn't. "Search my computer. Search his, I dare you. If he's guilty, I'll take the blame with him." Her eyes flicked to Ethan, a silent plea. "Don't stand alone. Not this time." For the first time, Ethan felt something he hadn't let himself feel in weeks. Not pity, not rage, but the warmth of knowing someone would bleed for him too. Behind the glass walls of the upper office, Thomas Rivera watched, eyes cold but heart pounding. He murmured to the city skyline, "So you'd stand by him, girl, even without knowing who he really is. Maybe that's the loyalty this place forgot." The conference room reeked of fear disguised as fake civility. Ethan stood alone on one side of the table, Claire at his shoulder, her hand hidden behind the file she clutched like a lifeline. On the other side sat the floor manager, two senior heads of department, and a snake of a lawyer who smelled blood in the water. "Mr. Cole," the lawyer sneered, tapping a stack of printed screenshots. "Our logs show your login details accessed confidential files that ended up in the competitor's database. How do you explain that?" Ethan's eyes didn't flinch. His shirt still bore the stain from when he'd punched his locker the night before, like a badge of defiance. He opened his mouth, then stopped when Claire stepped forward. "Check the timestamp." Her voice was calm, but her fingers trembled. "He was with me, fixing reports during that hour. He couldn't have logged in. And these screenshots?" She dropped her file on the table. Fresh printouts, evidence that the logs had been doctored. All eyes turned to the manager, who went pale as wax. "This is ridiculous." But Ethan cut in, voice like steel wrapped in velvet. "Save it." He pulled something from his jacket pocket, a plain ID card. He slid it across the table, the name catching every eye in the room. Nathan Rivera. A heartbeat passed, then another. Someone gasped. The lawyer dropped his pen. The manager shrank into his chair as if the leather could swallow him whole. Nathan, straightened his spine, every inch the son of the empire he'd pretended to crawl beneath. "Did you really think you could bury me under your filth?" His voice was quiet, but it cracked the room open like thunder. "This company bears my name, and every rat that feeds on it. Today you starve." Claire's breath caught. For weeks she'd wondered what made him stand so still when the world beat him down. Now she saw it, not arrogance but iron. But one of the board members stammered, "Mr. Rivera, we can fix this internally." Nathan laughed, but it was a cold laugh, slicing through the lies that had chained them both. "Oh, I'm sure you will, starting now." He turned to Claire, not caring who saw, not caring who whispered. He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "And if anyone here still thinks kindness is weakness, meet the girl who stood up for it when no one else did." Security streamed in. The lawyer stuttered excuses that died in his throat. Vanessa's name appeared on every piece of fraud Nathan held up. Her cronies ducked, shields gone. One by one, the poison was dragged into the daylight. Above, Thomas Rivera stood behind the glass, unseen. His eyes glittered with something sharp and ancient, The pride of a father watching his legacy reborn not through wealth but through grit. "Good," he murmured. "Let them remember, the name Rivera isn't just gold, it's the blade that guards it." When the dust settled, Nathan and Claire stepped out into the rain-soaked lobby, the whispers chasing them like a fading ghost. But Claire held her head high, no shame, no fear. She looked at him, searching. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Nathan brushed her hair back from her forehead, the city lights catching in the tears she didn't bother to hide. "Because you saw me when I was nothing, and that's all I ever wanted." In the end, the most precious thing we keep after all the storms, at work, at home, or out on the street, is not a title or a name. It's how we treat the people we meet along the way. No one truly knows where they stand on life's starting line, or where someone else might cross the finish. So, be kind when you can. Offer respect to those who have none to give you back. Lend a hand to the ones who feel invisible. Kindness won't make you smaller. It only reminds you that a good heart will always stand taller than any lie or cruelty. And one day, that kindness might become the bridge that carries you to something, or someone, you never even dreamed of. Thank you for choosing to spend these moments with this story. Out of countless stories you could have watched today, if you feel something warm in your heart right now, please leave a like, subscribe to this channel, and share this story with someone who might need it. Until next time, take care and stay gentle.